Our big shot today, one of the greatest financial minds and philanthropists of our times, Los Angeles titan Michael Milken. In the 1980s, he was known to many as a major but controversial financier. But over the past 3 decades, Milken is most widely revered for being a transformational force in business, medicine, education, and philanthropy across the globe. He is a man on a mission whose mandate to make a difference takes center stage each year at the Milken Institute Global Conference, where he brings on world experts to take on the most dynamic issues of the day.
We can solve the problems of the world.
We've got the sun and we've got the wind. Let's use it.
Billionaire philanthropist Michael Milken, our big shot today. Welcome, Michael Milken, to Big Shots. Thank you for taking the time.
It's great to be with you.
The phenomenal Davos with palm trees that is the Global Milken Conference every year. You bring 3,500 of the world's movers and shakers, leaders of nations, top corporate CEOs. Of all of the phenomenal leaders you've brought together, what are you most proud of? Is there one tangible solution, entity, company that's come out of the Milken Conference each year that you say, that is why we do it?
I don't think I could say one, Giselle. I would say the birth of technology that today might eliminate most of melanoma that my father died from as a cause of death, with our immunology efforts that empowered these individuals that participated. The networking that has financed business after business because they met here. Many years ago in America, we were worried about acid rain. And they were going to die from acid rain and the emissions of SO2 into the air. We worked hard to create the financial incentives by creating these credits. And today, acid rain is no longer an issue in America because we were able to create financial instruments that incentivize people to do that. From the very first Milken Institute Global Conference, an individual that I've been bonded to, a man named Gary Becker, who won a Nobel Prize for his work on human capital. He passed away this year, 2014, at the age of 84, unfortunately. But his contribution to the Milken Institute over 18 years, the message that the most important element in our society is the productivity of the individuals, their education and health. It's not the roads, it's not the bridges, it's not the buildings, it's not the physical things. It's the ability of the people. And I have tried to live that way, and my focus on individuals my whole life.
World leaders and heads of companies vie to spend time with you and pick that magnificent genius brain of yours for your counsel and wisdom. And I want to do so today, especially on Latin America, the emerging Latino demographic.
The future of California is tied to the future of the Latino community in California. And one of the things we see in California, particularly Southern California, is what happens here first then spreads throughout America. If we don't make capital available to people with ability who deserve it, then our country is poor and the future of our country is challenged. Hopefully this interview will send a clear message that it's not just me but many others at the Milken Institute that are focused. And I've told leaders around the world that it's very important that you bond with the Latin American community today. Los Angeles, this great city we live in, is the leading center of small and medium business in our country. Many of the largest companies have left, but we have the largest number of entrepreneurs who are making things, and whether it's clothes or gadgets or toys here. And it is an exciting place to be.
How do we convince corporate America, Wall Street, that we are a worthy investment looking at the future?
You are a worthy investment, and I have spent almost 30 years working on that. It's been today almost 50 years since my life changed, and that was the Watts riots in 1965, when I met a young African-American man who raised many of the issues you've just raised. He wasn't part of the American dream. His father didn't have access to capital. He wouldn't have access to capital, and made me change my major from math and physics to go into business, and I was determined to allow the American dream to live.
How do we make that happen? How do we get the banks and the world of finance to view our community as that kind of worthy investment that you have for the past 3 decades? Because they don't right now.
They don't because they have so many restrictions on them, and today great deal of regulation. The penalty for making a bad loan is so high, even though the rates of return adjusted. Don't assume that large institutions are flexible enough. There are a series of companies, many of them started by people that used to work for me today, that are making loans available. And I think one of the things that is so important, and we're focused on in the Milken Institute, is to make sure people realize the opportunity.
You have invested in some of the biggest brands and companies with Latin themes.
I made a point of financing every Latin American entrepreneur I can find, and we financed Univision and Telemundo, and when Vons launched Tianguis.
What's the best investment in our community today?
I'm working on a new business here for tutoring online.
Like Carlos Slim's new outreach to Latino Americans?
It's a little different in that we're going to try to create a website that you can go to, and if we wanted to help children going to a particular school, they can get tutoring free. They can get it from home, they can get it from the Boys and Girls Clubs. A lot of them have, smartphones today. But if you want to help people, you can help them 24 hours a day, you can help their parents, you can help everyone. And beginning in the year 2000, the majority of children born in the state of California were of Latin American ancestry. And today, more than 50% of everyone under 18 years of age is of Latin American ancestry. And so the future of Los Angeles, Southern California, and in many ways the future of America is being played right now in the elementary schools, the middle schools, and the high schools of our city and Southern California cities.
We make up 25% of the college-age population, and we graduate less than 12% from higher institutions of learning. You know more than anybody else that education is the key to breaking out of that impoverished state. Do we leave it up to our government to advance education in these inner cities, or is it more through your efforts with other visionaries ensuring the future of our children?
It's both. In some areas, the private sector can actually make it work. And they've created new products, new services, breakthroughs in medical research. In education, in our country, we've left it too much to the government. It is the strength of the parents that's the strength of a school. The lower middle class parent, in the end, is the real strength of a school. If I visit a school and we have heavy parent involvement, I know that school will be different. We had an event that we showed up, and there was 1,500 kids and 4 parents showed up. So they might have challenges, transportation, other jobs, working 2 jobs, challenges with other children at home. But there is nothing more important than the education of their children.
You know, the Asian population and the Hispanic population soon to become, the dominant demographics in Los Angeles.
Not just Los Angeles, but eventually, it already is in Los Angeles, but the whole country.
The Asian population doesn't have the kind of stigma that the Hispanic population has. They are known to be good in school, educate their kids, which is a priority, and even though it's the same in the Latin community, we don't have that typecasting. And largely, some would say it's a result of immigration reform and the diatribe that has become so volatile around this debate. You have always come out in favor of immigration reform as an economic imperative to this nation.
America is a country of immigrants. We are all immigrants. Someone in our family took a risk. And the person that swam across the Rio Grande was a risk taker, probably an entrepreneur who wanted a better life for them and their children. And so their education, embracing them, is essential to the future of our country. It is essential that we understand we need to create opportunities for the Latin American population, that they will embrace capitalism, entrepreneurship, and understand that they have a path just like everyone else that came here to the country. I think America's greatest asset is, well, how it shines to the rest of the world, and that is an opportunity to succeed based on your ability. And that promise has got to be kept, and it won't be kept unless we educate our own citizens so they feel that they can compete with anyone who comes from around the world. In the Asian countries, the parent feels ultimately responsible for the education of their child. Here, for the most part, we've deferred to the government. And I think it takes that emphasis, and I believe one of the great leaders could be the Latin American community, to demand the best schools and the best teachers for their kids. They can make that demand at the ballot box because who they vote for will be the elected officials. So there's a lot of responsibilities when you become the majority. One of the things that is so important for for-profit companies to show the leadership is that in the union movement today, many of the leaders are from Latin American ancestry. And they've been given, they feel, more of an opportunity to move ahead in the union movement than they have as entrepreneurs. And this is one of the reasons we need both. We really need a shining example of that opportunity.
Do you see a lack of leadership in the Latino community to fight this battle more effectively?
I think when you look at the leadership between ourselves and others over the last 30 to 40 years, you don't see enough Latin American leadership in this area.
Why do you think that is?
I'm not sure why it is. I think they've, particularly those that have struggled economically, to have the freedom to reach out and do this. I think your focus in leadership, not just in the Latino movement, but in the women's movement, we sometimes forget in America that our success was based on discrimination against women. The best and brightest women in America were told into the 1960s that you could be a teacher or you could be a nurse. Those were your options. And so America was educated for 100 years by the best and brightest women in our country. Once we told women in the 1970s that we're going to create a level playing field today, and if I would have told you in the 1970s that the CEO of the most prestigious firm of the 20th century, for most of that was IBM, was a woman, and the largest defense contractor, the CEO was a woman, and the largest company for most of the 20th century, General Motors, was a woman, you would have said to me, Mike, that's ridiculous. But today, a woman is the CEO of IBM and General Motors and Lockheed Martin Marietta. And so these opportunities our country never prepared. And whether it was pay or prestige or other benefits, never really prepared for the fact that we went from the very top of the class to a large percentage of the people in education were no longer in the top part of the class. And this is our challenge as a country and the future of our country. And it needs to start, particularly in Southern California, with the Latin American population, with them demanding it for their children. And I remember the most powerful education movie, Stand and Deliver, was about a man named Jaime Escalante that I used to go into his classroom at Garfield High and participate in Algebra 2, trigonometry, and other math classes. And he had over 60 children in his class. And it let me see the opportunity. It's not the size of the classroom, it's the teacher. And that's why we started the National Educator Award.
Of which I have been to several times. It's the most inspiring evening.
We have to find out a way that's the most prestigious and most important job. And so these are our Olympians too. And I think we have to honor them.
Do you fear that, the protests we see now that have racial overtones, but are probably also deep-rooted in this wealth gap, will continue to cause unrest in this nation and threaten our country?
I think the wealth gap is a real challenge. And Racial undertones come when you have large growing groups that people believe in a zero-sum game. In other words, the pie is only this big, and we're going to divide it up, and you're going to take a piece of my pie. I have never believed that, and those that believe we can expand the pie through economic growth and make it larger and we can all benefit. When we founded something called CapCure in 1993, and the CA stood for all cancers and the P for prostate, and cure all life-threatening diseases, my promise to everyone was that we will increase the size of the pie, the amount of money going to medical research. We will double it. Every single disease will benefit. Cancer might triple and prostate cancer might increase tenfold, but we're not going to take money from juvenile diabetes and switch it to prostate cancer. That was my promise. And 5 years later, led by the President, the Senate, and the House, we doubled the National Institute of Health budget. We tripled the national cancer budget. We increased the FDA budget. And the incremental funding now approaches $250 billion, and the benefits of that are seen by everyone. So if you believe that you can make life better for everyone, then you don't have many of those racial tensions that you're taking something from me. If you view an individual coming here that it's going to make life better for you and increase the economic opportunities, then you're not fearful of that individual. There was an environment in America in the 1950s and 60s where just a willingness to work hard was enough if you didn't have a skill, because skills only made up 20% of the jobs. Today, a skill or a semi-skill makes up 80% of the jobs. So if you want to have a middle-class family and have your kids go to college and flourish and everything, just a willingness to work hard is not enough. You have to develop a skill. And we in our schools have to adjust to the 21st century and the 22nd century. If you look at Germany today, they're very focused on giving you a skill. And the vast majority of the population, it's not going to college to learn a Romance language. Okay, it's learning a skill that will serve them well. And
so the community college, back to trade schools.
That's one, but also redoing the high school experience. College is not for everyone.
When I read all of the things that you're involved in, and I couldn't possibly take the time, your scholars program, your TAP system, your math club, your teacher award, your EduVentures, your health policy, and all the maverick moves you've made of late, you're a man on a mission. What fueled you to give back? You said it was the Watts riots, perhaps. Was it your family? Was it being incarcerated for 22 months and being free and knowing that this is how you want to make your life meaningful?
When I was in elementary school, my father had lost half his relatives in the Holocaust, and family was the central core. His mother died in childbirth, his father died when he was 10 or 11, and he had polio as a young boy. And so he was robbed of his family. And to him and to us, family and extended family was everything. And I learned at a very young age that there could never be a good life for me unless everyone felt they had an opportunity. And how can I leave a world for my children or my children's children unless every single person at least thought they had a chance? My father's experience, affected me at a very young age. And then Sputnik went up. And I think people who were not born in the 50s or 40s or 60s even don't really think about what Sputnik meant to America. The fact that the Soviet Union could send up this satellite circling the Earth in 1957 in the middle of the Cold War delivered a message that maybe their system of communism was better, and in the middle of a fear of nuclear arms, that if they could have something go up and encircle and pass over us, we weren't safe, and we had duck and cover drills where we were safe under our desk. So I was determined to lead the space program at that time, and I wrote a letter to the president telling the president that I'm willing to volunteer to lead America's...
How old were you?
11, to lead our space program. I'd never missed a math or science problem. And I went to Berkeley to do that. And then the free speech movement occurred, and then the Watts riots. And I discovered that I didn't know everything. And maybe we didn't have access to capital, as you've reminded me today. And I was going to go change my major to business, and I was going to devote my life to the American dream. But the American dream and the civil rights of access to capital to everyone based on ability. Then my father was diagnosed with melanoma, my mother-in-law with breast cancer, and I discovered the first time what a problem was. A problem was something you couldn't solve with money. And no matter what I could do, and no matter how much my influence, or no matter how much research I did, I concluded that I could not save my father's life. So I moved my family back to California. We then formed the Milken Family Foundation. We're responding to the needs, and whether it's education, or whether it's healthcare, or whether it's science, or whether it's access to capital, each of these have defined my life.
You could be making lots and lots more money doing other things.
I would say wealth is a byproduct of creating something of value. And I have financed more than 3,000 companies. I only had one person ever tell me he was in it for the money. The passion to build something and to create something. I believe you can solve most problems. And so I have a passion to find out a solution to those problems.
Who inspires you?
I would say it's more in the philanthropic area. Dr. Barbara Firestone today, who runs the Help Group, which is the largest facility in America for kids with challenges, learning challenges, and other disabilities and psychological problems. And I taught at the school for 2 years, and we've been involved now for over 25 years. Jaime Escalante, I loved his interaction, and I learned so much about life sitting in the classroom. I was sitting next to a student whose family had come from Central America in this advanced math class, and I was wondering, he didn't have his book. And so he borrowed someone else's book, and he was doing his homework while the class was going on. And I asked him if I could give him a hand. Does he need a book? Does he not have a book? And he told me that his father drinks a great deal. And they only have two rooms that they live in, a living room, kitchen area, and a bedroom. And when his father is drunk, he gets violent. And his book was in the bedroom. And it just made me think again, when you judge a person, you have to see the world through their eyes, not through your eyes. And when you measure a person's achievements, you have to wonder on how difficult was the road they traveled. I really am motivated by those that can find a way to give the less fortunate in our society an opportunity to succeed at the levels they can.
When you've faced adversity, what is it? Is it a discipline of the mind to hold on to hope, or to activate a part of you that only sees what's promising and ahead?
I think we underestimate the power of the individual and the strength that's within. And I think the power from within, we have not fully tapped that power.
Is that a big part of your life right now?
There is a clinical trial medical test that started with many of the leading scientists from the world that involves becoming a vegetarian, changing your diet substantially, meditation, and massage. And they're out to prove you can change your genes, you can change the length and quality of your life in that manner, without anything else happening. I think it's important that there be some part of your life that gives you pleasure. We have found that the sense of smell energizes your immune system. So what do those senses of smells bring back to you? If you've lost your parents, or you were close to your grandmother and she was cooking a food and that smell reminds you of a positive point in your life. And so I think part of life is finding those things that are positive for you. that make you feel good. And it's not money that makes those things come back, those experiences. Rarely is it anything to do with wealth. I'm very focused today on whether these things can actually improve your health.
Married 46 years, you have your 3 kids and 9 grandkids you just welcome and counting.
I thought grandchildren would be fabulous, but it's better than fabulous.
Well, you do real granddaddy duty. You're not just on the sidelines.
When you're diagnosed with a life-threatening disease, anyone diagnosed with cancer, and when they give you a short period to live with your prognosis, you always think, am I going to see my children grow up? Am I going to see any of my children get married? Am I ever going to see grandchildren? And so it's been an enormous gift for both Lori and myself from that standpoint. It is a gift that medical research has been given to us and public health, and that's one of the reasons we've been so focused on that area. So average life expectancy on planet Earth was only 31 years. Today it's over 70, and in the United States we're around 80.
I want to talk about your maverick and bold efforts in the area of public health policy. Your focus is not just on cures, but it's on prevention.
In the last 20 years, we've concentrated on prevention and wellness, put out the reports. And the gaining of weight in America, we put this report out in 2007, that it cost our country $1 trillion a year. Every single person's health care could be paid for if we could weigh the same we did as a country 20 some odd years ago. If you say to me, what can I do? Well, one thing I could do if I've never taken a biology course, I'm going to have a hard time inventing the next cure. But I could get myself in shape and my children in shape. One of the things we've discovered is that when a woman has a baby, the next 6 months are key. If she loses weight, then the whole family is thinner. If she doesn't lose weight, then it really kind of reflects the entire family from that standpoint. And so most of medicine and the driving force in medicine has been driven by women. A woman, due to the fact that she gives birth and many other factors, is much more engaged with the healthcare system. So part of our effort is to talk to the women of America and what food they're putting on the table.
We are the world mecca in Los Angeles for the best authentic foods from around the world.
It is so exciting to live in Los Angeles. In this area, 38 countries have the largest population outside their country in California, and most of it in Southern California. This is one of the great strengths of our city, and you can see it in business, but you can also see it in entertainment, music, and in food.
Can you give us a sneak peek right here on LA Mag's big shots of some of the dynamic leaders and speakers who will be in your panels this season?
For anyone that wants to see, can go to the milkeninstitute.org. And if you're interested in education, you can look at the world's leaders and what they said in education and hold them accountable. And if you want energy and environment, or you want to look at what the philanthropists are thinking, you can go, or education. Or if you want to learn a little more about the media and technology industry. So any person on their smartphone at home can go and sit in the audience as if they were with us. So it is available to all Angelenos.
Any of those top women CEOs?
We hope all 3 of those I mentioned will be with us. We are proud of the fact that we continue to increase the percentage of our speakers that are women each year.
You happen to stand next to, at least in the cover of Forbes, our new Nobel Peace Prize winner, Malala, who represents so much to women and young women today. Give me a sense of your meeting with her.
She's a brave young woman who has a strong message and, didn't ask to play that role. Now, the youngest person who's ever won a Nobel Prize is a symbol to all girls in the world. And what a better world will be if once everyone understands that they can live the American dream, whether it's in the world's greatest city, Los Angeles, or in other cities or other countries in the world, and that they will have an opportunity to succeed based on their ability.
What is next for Michael Milken in his eyes?
One, I'm looking forward America for the middle class. The strength of our country is you need the middle class to move it. That's been challenged by technology to decide that they want the number one thing most important to them is the education of their children, that they have an opportunity, and to have leadership in that area. We need to make people feel that the education of their children or someone else's child is the most important thing to perpetuate America as we know it. I'm also looking forward in the next few years to the elimination of most cancers as a cause of death. In fact, when we complete that, I'm actually going to go on vacation.
For the first time in your entire life. You are the epitome of what it means to be both powerful and empowering. So Michael Milken, you're our big shot today, and I thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Giselle.
All the best to you.
All the best.
And we'll see you next time on
Good.
Big Shots.
Thank you.